The final item of business today is a members' business debate on motion number 4569 in the name of Alison McInnes on Camp Hill, Scotland. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put. Would those members who wish to speak in the debate please press the request to speak buttons as soon as possible. Alison, if you are ready to open the debate, 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer. And let me start by welcoming the members of Camp Hill communities from around Scotland who are in the public gallery this evening. And I would also like to thank fellow MSPs who supported my motion in order to enable it to be debated tonight. Camp Hill is a worldwide movement of communities supporting children, young people, adults and older people who have learning disabilities and other support needs. That support is provided using a holistic model of care, support and education. It's an approach that seeks to provide mutual support and nurture independence through living, learning and working together. Now a worldwide movement, Camp Hill was founded more than 70 years ago in Aberdeen by a group of Austrian refugees, many of whom had had to flee the country in 1939 because they were Jewish. They set up their first community in a rented manse, providing accommodation and food from the garden for the small group of children that they were caring for. The men were then interned as enemy aliens, but the women proceeded to purchase Camp Hill House on the 1st of June 1940, and that's considered the birthday of the movement. Scotland today is home to 12 Camp Hill communities, from the north east through the central belt to Dumfries and Galloway. Many of these Camp Hill communities are also thriving social enterprises, selling homemade breads, cheeses and handicrafts, running cafes in their local communities, or providing community composting facilities. A strong emphasis is placed on each individual achieving their potential and as much independence as they are able in order to widen their opportunities when making a move to long-term provision later on. I've visited Camp Hill School on 2 occasions this year and was privileged to meet the members of the Pupil Council and the Eco Committee. Camp Hill is an independent day school and residential school on the outskirts of Aberdeen. It was very enlightening to talk with the pupils, and I want to just take this opportunity to congratulate the school pupils on winning a green flag. It's an elite few who win the gold standard and the flag without first using the stepping stones of bronze and silver awards, and the green flag is a testament to all your hard work. I was also able to visit Simian Care for the Elderly, and when I visited it had 17 residents, the majority of whom were very frail and elderly. Some of the residents used to be in the community at Newton D, and others are former co-workers, demonstrating that Camp Hill can provide support at every stage of an individual's life. Simian Care is always full, and it also has a waiting list. And at the moment it's trying to raise £3.5 million for a new home on the same site. It will also provide new outreach services to the other communities. So far, fundraising is going well, but there's quite a long way to go yet. I'm also acquainted with Newton D and its lovely cafe and bakery, so I have an insight into the range of provision that Camp Hill provides. And I was pleased to host a reception at lunchtime and to meet people from the other communities around Scotland. I learned too much to fit it all into this speech, but I know that other members will be able to highlight some of the good work going on in their own area. And in that regard, Nigel Donn has expressed disappointment that he's not able to stay for the debate tonight. Different communities then across Scotland, but all united behind the same commitment to help every individual achieve their potential and as much independence as they are able. And that's what really struck me most whenever I visited, the complete positivity within each community. They are distinctive communities where education and learning, appreciation of arts and music, concern for the land and the environment, and the fostering of mutual respect and understanding combine to create happy and optimistic individuals sharing life together in a calm and safe environment. Rather than seeing a difficulty or defining an individual what they can't do, Camp Hill has the determination to look for the positive, to unlock each individual's potential. Independent scrutiny by the Care Inspectorate confirms that these communities are offering services of the highest quality. The particular strengths of Camp Hill, as assessed, lie in its creation of therapeutic environments and its particular staffing and management and leadership models, and that's borne out by the collaborative work that they do with Aberdeen University on a BA in social pedagogy. What does concern me is the lack of recognition of the benefits of this approach from statutory authorities. and the significant difficulties that parents in particular can face in securing funding from local authorities for residential care or education of this nature. Parents tell me it can be such a battle, and it is often only when things are at breaking point that funding is agreed. We should encourage a more cooperative approach, with local authorities supporting the best choice for each individual. It's surely wrong when an over-insistence on inclusion in reality turns into isolation and exclusion. And this is from a pupil's own words. Before I came to Camp Hill, I wasn't included in anything. I was pushed to the side. No one wanted to teach me. Teachers would ignore me if I asked questions, and other pupils would pick on me. I chose to sit inside for lunch because I was afraid to go outside. I was accepted at Camp Hill, asked my opinion on things, given the opportunity to do things such as going to college and drama and art. I never thought I would be allowed to do those things, and actually discovered that I was quite good at them. And here's a parent's view. Jack's life at Camp Hill has purpose. His daily routine builds into a complete year in which he feels secure, and through this his character is developing. His contribution is valued. He has self-worth. While at Camp Hill, he has grown into a person who we are proud of. He has achieved things we have never dreamed possible. He has learnt to speak. We thank you for this. You're an extended family to us, not just for Jack. A lifeline that we will never forget nor take for granted. I would urge local councils and statutory services to consider a more person-centred approach to what is appropriate for any one individual. And I hope that this debate will help to do that. And I would be grateful if the Minister, in his response, was able to support that call. In closing, Presiding Officer, I pay tribute to the achievements of pupils and residents and to the dedication of staff, co-workers and volunteers in the Camp Hill movement, and I hope that they will continue to flourish.
Thank you very much. Now call on Maureen Watt to be followed by Anne McTaggart. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and can I thank Alison McInnes for bringing this debate to Parliament today to highlight the importance and the value of the Camp Hill movement, and to the many of my constituents who have emailed me in advance of this debate about this evening. Of the 12 Camp Hill communities in Scotland, no less than 5 are in my constituency of Aberdeen South and North Kincardine. Those are across the range of Camp Hill's activities. For children and young people, there's Camp Hill School. For young adults, there's Ben Acher on South Deeside Road. For adults, there's Newton D and Tina Truman, apologies for the pronunciation, and for elderly people, the Simeon Care Facility. I first got to know about the Camp Hill communities many years ago when a cousin of my mum's with Down syndrome stayed at Newton D for a short time, and we visited her. I think her elderly parents thought that she perhaps might want to stay there, but she was too much of a Cockney to ever stay for very long out of London. And since then, I have visited most of the facilities in my constituency. I visited Ben Acher at a doors open day when I saw the biggest raspberries I've ever seen growing in the garden. I don't know if the plants are talked to or not, but they certainly have a wonderful way with growing crops. That's also a facility close to my heart because many Germans come across to do voluntary work in that facility because of the rules of compulsory service in Germany. The conscientious objectors often do voluntary work and come to Ben Acher, and they're often seen walking into Aberdeen along the South Deeside Road. Newton D, as Alison has pointed out, is a wonderful facility. It's nice to go there and have a cup of coffee and buy the bread if you just want to chill out a bit. It's little wonder that they've got the highest eco flag status because not only have they a wind turbine, but they're all very much into eco-friendly activities, and the woodcrafts are something else to behold. And as Alison also mentioned, the Simeon Care Facility for the elderly is engaging very much with the community in trying to raise the funds to rebuild that community. The Camp Hill philosophy is something that many years ago was thought of as kind of being very hippie and not kind of mainstream, based on self-determination and equality, and is focused on providing for each individual's need through a supportive community and by creating a safe and supportive environment for individuals and encouraged to develop their own independence through engaging in community life. And that now has become very much mainstream. And I think there are many opportunities, as Alison also alluded to, for councils to make more use of the facilities that are on the doorstep provided by the Camp Hill movement. I think it's absolutely silly that local authorities will set about creating new facilities when Camp Hill in and around Aberdeen has the facilities there to provide for the less vulnerable in society there on their doorsteps. So I would like, in conclusion, to pay tribute to the Camp Hill movement, its organisers and users, whose professionalism, care and hard work, I know, has made a world of difference to the lives of individuals and families across Scotland.
Thank you very much. Now call on Anne McTaggart to be followed by Joan McAlpine.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am delighted to contribute to this members' debate on Camp Hill movement in Scotland and would like to thank Alison McInnes for securing time in the Chamber tonight to highlight the valuable work that Camp Hill and its many volunteers and staff undertake, and welcome the Camp Hill staff that are here. As we have heard, Camp Hill is an international organisation supporting those with mental and physical disabilities and works with individuals of all ages with additional support needs to live full and active lives within their communities. In Scotland, Camp Hill works in 12 different areas, and although there is no current operations in my region of Glasgow yet, Camp Hill has built a strong reputation across the whole of the country as an inclusive and dynamic organisation that provides benefits not just for those that it works with directly, but also for the wider communities in which they operate. Although Camp Hill has a dedicated and talented staff team, they are also fortunate to be supported by a team of active volunteers who undertake a variety of roles within the charity. These volunteers provide crucial support to full-time staff members and help to increase the quality of life for Camp Hill residents across all of the 12 centres in Scotland. I am sure that the contribution of these volunteers has also been instrumental in the recent assessment of Camp Hill by the Care Inspectorate, who found that the centres were performing well for their residents, and in particular were providing a high-quality staffing and leadership structure for all staff and volunteers. This is an excellent result for the charity and rightly recognises Camp Hill as a first-class provider of care for those with additional physical and mental health needs. However, it is my view that no disabled person should receive lower quality care simply because of where they live, and that more needs to be done to replicate models of best practice such as Camp Hill and other areas of Scotland, and in particular in Glasgow. It's a sad reality that caring for those with additional needs is a costly and often complex process, where no one-size-fits-all approach can be adopted. Therefore, we should seek to learn from examples where organisations are meeting the needs of those that they support and inspire to ensure the same standards and approaches across the country, irrespective of whether the provider is public, private or charitable. Thank you.
Very much. I now call on Joan McAlpine to be followed by Alex Ferguson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I too would like to congratulate Alison McInnes on securing today's debate and welcome those members of the Camp Hill communities who are in the gallery today. There are two Camp Hill projects in my South of Scotland region, one in Loch Ather, which I know that my colleague Aileen MacLeod will talk about in more detail later, and another in Pishwanton in East Lothian, and that's the the place that I intend to devote most of my speech to today. Pishwanton Wood is a place of learning, but not in the traditional sense. The facility consists of 60 acres of varied plant and animal habitat at the foot of the Lammermuir Hills, south east of Edinburgh. It's belonged to the Life Science Trust since 1996, when it was bought as a base for the demonstration of Gautien's Science and Art in Action. Ever since then, it's been used as an outdoor classroom, gradually developing indoor facilities over the years. The focus on inclusion is apparent in the way that the land is worked. It's not a closed community. People with learning difficulties work alongside students and volunteers from the area in a manner that promotes therapy both for the people and the land. The work of the community in Pishwanton not only promotes inclusion and integration of people with learning disabilities, it's also important for Scotland's dedication to a sustainable future. It's a flagship for sustainable environmental practice with beautiful handcrafted buildings made of natural material. The team listened to the land in order to care for it and develop it in a way that marries the best of human intention for sustainable ecological action with what the land itself is trying to become. It's also a centre of environmental education, research and therapy, which offers opportunities for people of all ages and abilities to renew and deepen their relationship with nature. Using Gautien's scientific holistic methodology, they are encouraged to explore ways of integrating biodynamic land management, agriculture, horticulture, woodland management and conservation activities, and building to create a practical demonstration of sustainable land use. It was my great pleasure to meet one of the young men today, David, who works at Pishwanton, and discuss with him the kind of opportunities that it's given to him at the reception today at lunchtime. And David was telling me that he's been working on a new chalet that they're building for indoor teaching at Pishwanton, and I was looking at some of the foundations that he had been digging, and the joinery work and tiling work that he's been doing, and the opportunity that's given him to develop meaningful work and develop his skills, because he's a young man who has the opportunity to work, particularly in woodwork, with the correct training and the correct nurturing environment. And when I visited Loch Arthur earlier, actually one of the first things I did when I was elected was visit Loch Arthur in Dumfries and Galloway, and I was struck there by the opportunities that people had to really develop their skills. I mean, people with learning disabilities are as varied as everyone else, but often certain people with learning disabilities can do things that other people who don't have the disabilities can't do quite so well. For example, they can do methodical work. I've got a learning disabled sister who's got Down syndrome, and she's a much more methodical person than me, much more organised, and can pay attention to detail. And so there are many people who, if they were given the right supportive environment, perhaps without interruptions, where they could work to a routine, and they didn't have distractions, they can actually perform at a very, very high level in spite of their disability. And so that's why I'd like to congratulate Camp Hill again, and congratulate Alison for this debate, and also endorse the points made by both Alison McInnes and Maureen Watt that Camp Hill does offer a very important model that local authorities would be well to pay more attention to. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call on Alex Ferguson to be followed by Eileen MacLeod.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and as others have already done, can I begin by applauding and thanking Alison McInnes for bringing this motion to the Chamber, and echoing my delight at being able to participate in the debate this evening. I first became aware of the Camp Hill movement early on in my MSP career, if it can be called that, when my wife and I attended an open day. I think Maureen Watt said she had the same experience, held in this case by the Loch Arthur community at Beeswing in what is now my constituency, and I'm delighted to welcome the 3 representatives from Loch Arthur to the gallery this evening. But at that open day, I bought some of the most delicious cheese and bread that it has ever been my pleasure to consume, but probably more importantly, I learnt a great deal more about the Loch Arthur community and the Camp Hill movement itself. On its website, the Lochathra Camp Hill community, as it is officially called, has a subtitle which reads, "A Life of Many Colours." And I can't think of a more fitting description of this extraordinary place. It's a community of 9 houses which are occupied by over 70 people. And these houses are not just somewhere for a group of individuals to live in. As the movement puts it itself, we want each house to be a group of people who benefit from and enjoy living together. So Lochathra is a self-help society that caters for every level of disability and need through mutual care, friendship, respect and support. But it's also a working community, and an incredibly effective one at that. It's based around a farm and a large garden, both of which are highly productive, and have gradually expanded to include a creamery, which is increasingly renowned for its fantastic cheeses. I can still taste the Criffle cheese that I had at lunchtime. So it's strong as well as fantastic. It's got a bakery, it's got a wood workshop, it's got a weaving workshop, and since the end of November, a magnificent new purpose-built cafe and farm shop, which sells the full range of the Lochathra products, all of which are produced to the very highest standards of certified organic production. Lochathra is a massive success story which has come up against many a hurdle since its establishment in 1984. And not the least of those was the outbreak of foot and mouth disease in 2001, which resulted in the wholesale destruction of much of Galloway's livestock, a situation that reduced many a hardened Galloway farmer to tears, and I simply leave it to the members' imagination to picture how the Lochathra community felt when it was caught up in that horrendous scenario. But as always, Lochathra bounced back, not just to where it was before, but to the extent that only a year ago it was awarded the BBC's Food and Farming Award as the best food producer of the year, just about the highest accolade you can get, a truly outstanding achievement and recognition for a truly outstanding community, one that I suspect is typical of Camp Hill communities across the country. Presiding Officer, I would not want to give the impression that Lochathra is in any way a closed community. It is very much the opposite. It's now an important local employer with 17 employees from out with the community itself. It sponsors students on the BA that Alison McInnes referred to on social pedagogy course that was developed as a successful partnership between Aberdeen University and the Camp Hill Rudolf Steiner School in Aberdeen. And I was more than happy to join the community in opposing changes to that course that the Scottish Government, through the Scottish Social Services Council, was seeking to bring about in 2011, and which would have had a detrimental impact on Lochathra, and I'm delighted to say that those changes were successfully opposed. Presiding Officer, in closing, the community recently presented its own production of Shakespeare's King Lear. There's surely, therefore, no finer way to describe both the Lochathra community and the Camp Hill movement in general by quoting from that great work. How beauteous mankind is, O brave new world that has such people in it. I applaud the work and the ethos of Camp Hill. We can all learn a great deal from it. Thank you.
Many thanks. I now call on Aileen MacLeod to be followed by Lewis MacDonald.
Presiding Officer, I too congratulate Alison McInnes on securing tonight's debate, and also welcome members of Camp Hill Movement who are here in the public gallery. And I'd like to focus my remarks on the Camp Hill Movement's contribution to South Scotland and on the community that I'm most familiar with, Lochathra in Beeswing. And some members will recognise the name in another context, and as Alec Ferguson so rightly pointed out, last year Lochathra won the BBC's prestigious Food and Farming Award for Best Food Producer, and Lochathra cheese has won numerous other awards since 1991. And I also hope members may have had the opportunity to sample Lochathra cheese, which Alec Ferguson certainly had, at the reception at lunchtime celebrating the work of Camp Hill communities across Scotland. So I therefore make no apology for urging anyone visiting Galloway to drop in at their new farm shop and cafe, which opened at the end of November. Presiding Officer, that ambitious new development is an indication of Lochathra's success as a social enterprise, but is also a fundamental part of the underlying philosophy of the Camp Hill movement. Lochathra is not a closed community, but one which is very much part of and contributes to the well-being of the wider community that surrounds it. It is also a significant local employer, contributing meaningfully to a very rural economy. And Dave Mitchell from Lochathra, he speaks of their new development not just as a response to customer demand, but as a means by which the public can have an encounter with the Lochaartha community. It's a means of introducing people to the Camphill movement's wider aims through essentially the excellent produce and beautiful surroundings which the Lochaartha community has created. Presiding Officer, I would not members to think, therefore, that I am only interested in the social enterprise aspects of Lochaartha, or just in the food that Lochaartha produces, although I can assure members it is extremely delicious. But Lochaartha's primary purpose, after all, is to care for adults with varying degrees of support needs, and for me there is a great deal of relevance in the model of supported living that the Camphill movement espouses. And more than 70 people live at Lochaartha in 9 houses, as Alec Ferguson said in his contribution, and of those 70 people, 28 have disabilities and live in supported tenancies. The community revolves around the importance of the home life they create in their shared households and the importance of people of all abilities having meaningful work to do and being empowered to make their own contribution to the well-being of the community as a whole. In a sense, the success of social enterprise and the community's core aims are indivisible. And in my view, the Camphill movement's emphasis on respect, the value of the individual irrespective of their abilities or care needs, the importance of sustainability and the nurturing power of a caring community enriches Scotland. Now, Lochaartha's successful social enterprise links the aims and objectives of its own community to the wider community as a whole, and the success of its excellent produce validates Lochaartha's ethos of work in which everyone can participate, whatever their ability. In closing, Presiding Officer, the Camphill movement has grown and flourished over a 70-year history in this country, and I would join other members in saying wholeheartedly that I wish Lochaartha and all of the Camphill movement's Scottish communities every success for the future and pay tribute to the dedication, commitment and all the valuable work the staff and the volunteers do.
Thank you very much. I now call on Lewis MacDonald to be followed by Mark MacDonald.
Thank you very much, and let me begin by congratulating Alison McInnes for securing this debate. I too had the opportunity to visit Camphill School in the summer. A young man called Stephen welcomed me on my visit and explained what Camphill had meant in transforming his lives and in the lives of others. And I'm delighted that I was able to welcome Stephen and his friends to Holyrood on their visit to Holyrood today, and that they are in the gallery this evening. Alison McInnes and Maureen Watt were right to highlight the importance of the City of Aberdeen to the worldwide Camphill movement. The theory and practice of what we now call holistic education are what characterise this movement, and that is one more export of which Aberdeen can justly be proud. I live just downhill from the Camphill estate, or downriver I should say, but when I visited this summer I discovered an even closer connection, because when those progressive thinkers and educators fled from Nazi tyranny in Austria, the first place they made a home in Britain was in the old manse at Inch, the village in Aberdeenshire, where my late father was the minister and where I lived in my teenage years. That was the origin of the community, which after the outbreak of war set up home at Camphill with the support of the publisher S.W. Macmillan. And the teachings of Rudolf Steiner about addressing the physical, emotional, intellectual and spiritual needs of every pupil and celebrating the humanity of us all could hardly be more diametrically opposed to the inhuman creed from which those refugees had fled. It is therefore an honour that Aberdeen and the North East are home to the Camphill movement, and that Scotland is the first among the 20 countries worldwide where its philosophy has been put into practice. When I met Stephen and Lawrence Alfred at Camphill in the summer, they told me about the opportunities that young people with learning disabilities enjoyed: access to an education, to practical skills and to vocational qualifications too, allowing them to work and live as part of a real community within the safe environment which Camphill provides. It is the first school in Aberdeen to hold the prestigious autism accreditation after scoring 100% in a parent satisfaction survey. And in its latest report, Education Scotland graded Camphill School as excellent in 3 of the 8 areas inspected and very good in the other 5, a record that speaks for itself. As has been said, Aberdeen is indeed home to a total of 5 Camphill communities, providing residential and daycare, education and training, care and support for people of all ages, from the young children at the kindergarten to simian care for the elderly. And I had the opportunity today for the first time to meet with Jeannie Carlson from Simian Care, who is among those in the gallery as well. And she explained that her unit at Bealside is the only Camp Hill community in this country designed for older people, and talked about the £2 million fundraising campaign they have launched to expand the residential care home and to build a daycare centre, providing much-needed respite for both elderly residents and their families and carers. I was very interested to hear that those plans will involve applying the logic of Camp Hill's approach to younger age groups to those facing some of the toughest challenges of old age, such as dementia. Aberdeen previously had a pioneering home which specialised in dementia care at Thorngrove, which was a victim 3 or 4 years ago of local authority cuts. It would be marvellous again to have a unit that can give a lead nationally and internationally in how to support people at such a challenging time in their lives. And it would be fantastic to see all that has been achieved so far projected forwards and outwards to meet the needs of more people in more age groups and more communities in the future in Scotland and around the world.
Thank you very much. Now call on Mark MacDonald, after which we'll move to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and can I, like everybody else, congratulate Alison McInnes on bringing this debate to the Chamber. Can I also thank Lawrence Alfred of Camp Hill in Aberdeen for taking the time to show me around the campus on Deeside yesterday afternoon, and also can I thank the many residents, pupils and co-workers from the Camp Hill communities across Scotland who came to Parliament today. I had the pleasure of sampling what I think was probably the smelliest but certainly the tastiest cheese from the award-winning cheese range at Loch Arthur, and also the jams that were on display as well, and I've taken away an order form to ensure that I get my Christmas cheese board sorted. Can I say that I think that what I saw when I visited Camp Hill yesterday was what I would consider to be the embodiment of whole life learning, the notion that learning doesn't just exist in the classroom or in the school, but exists as part of life completely. And that was very clear from the discussions that I had with Lawrence as I was going around the site. Indeed, I was drawn to the Education Scotland report, which Lewis MacDonald referenced, which was issued in January of this year, where it talks of the particular strengths of the school: happy, relaxed children and young people who feel safe, valued and respected, the dedication and enthusiasm of staff and their sensitivity to individual needs, use of the natural environment to develop children and young people's communication, personal, social and vocational skills. And I think we heard about the fantastic Eco Award that the Camp Hill School in Aberdeen received, the breadth of the curriculum, including therapeutic support services, and the effective implementation of a clear and shared vision for care and education. And I think that speaks volumes for the ethos there. And it was very clear during my visit, the very clear community feel to the school campus. I think the community ethos is demonstrated as well by some of the fundraising efforts that are taking place. Indeed, I note from documentation provided to me that the school are trying to develop the swimming pool, the intention to raise around £70,000 to spend on new equipment at the swimming pool, but not just in terms of locally, but also the school newsletter from spring-summer states that Camp Hill School Aberdeen has raised £1,029 for tools for self-reliance schemes in Africa, which I think speaks volumes to the hard work and the ethos that is being carried out at the school. In terms of some of the issues that were raised with me during my visit, one of the issues that was raised with me was around the issue of firstly, local authority categorising Camp Hill as out of authority when geographically it is within the city of Aberdeen. It is essentially categorised in the same way as if a child were being sent on a placement to Cornwall or Bristol. That's something which I know that has been raised with the Chief Executive of Aberdeen City Council, and it's something I think does need to be borne in mind as, part of the Getting It Right for Every Child agenda should be that we are looking at the kind of environment provided by Camp Hill. But crucially beyond that as well is the issue around what happens to the funding for children once they reach the age of 16, and the possibility that those children may no longer be afforded the opportunity to remain within the Camp Hill environment, despite the fact that it's probably, on balance, the best thing for them. And I think that's something, again, that local authorities need to look at very carefully when they're taking decisions relating to the young people there. I think one of the things that struck me is that for people of my generation and possibly wider within the North East community, one of the things that Camp Hill will be most relevant to them for will be around the controversies that existed around the Aberdeen Western peripheral route. And I think one of the great pities would be if that were the only thing that people were aware of Camp Hill for, because what was clear from my visit and clear from the speeches being made by other members today is that there's a whole lot more to it, and people really should take the time to find that out.
Excellent. Many thanks. Now move to the closing speech from Dr. Alison Allen. 7 minutes, please, Minister.
Presiding Officer, firstly, I would like to congratulate Alison McInnes on bringing forward the motion for this evening's debate on Camp Hill, Scotland, which has, of course, achieved cross-party support. We've heard from a number of members of the quality of the support provided by the Camp Hill movement for children, young people and adults of all ages with learning disabilities, mental health issues and other support needs. Camp Hill communities in Scotland support more than 400 children, young people, adults and older people, and through a mixture of residential and day support. Over a third of the people they support are under 26, and I welcome the contribution that third sector partners, including Camp Hill Scotland, make in delivering services for people with learning disabilities. As we've heard, the entire Camp Hill movement takes its name from Camp Hill Estate in the Miltimber area of Aberdeen, where the Camp Hill founders opened their first community for children with special needs in June 1940. And as Lewis MacDonald mentioned, the origins of the movement are all the more remarkable, considering that many of its founders were at that time fleeing Nazi persecution. The expansion of Camp Hill to become a worldwide movement with over 100 communities in more than 20 countries, including 12 here in Scotland, is a credit to the dedication of staff, co-workers, volunteers and everyone who has contributed to its success over the decades. Alec Ferguson, Aileen MacLeod and Mark MacDonald pointed, all of them, to the achievements of Camp Hill in the field of food, not least in cheese. And I have to say, I felt that achievement. In fact, I felt I could almost smell that achievement very keenly, given that my last sustenance was a bacon roll at ATM in Stornoway Airport today. This evening's debate has provided a valuable opportunity to mark the contribution and achievements of Camp Hill internationally. But the Camp Hill School Aberdeen has played a major role in the success of the movement. The Camp Hill School provides care, education and therapy services for children and young people aged 3 to 19 with additional support needs arising from autism and complex physical disabilities. As a Parliament, we set a clear expectation through the Additional Support for Learning Act that every child and young person in Scotland should have any additional support needs identified and met. And in response to the point made by Ms McInnes about the relationship between local authorities and Camp Hill, it is certainly the case that organisations such as Camp Hill play a crucial role in augmenting local authority provision and supporting some of our most vulnerable young people. And the Education Act of 2004, the Education Support Learning Act, does place duties on local authorities around meeting children's needs, which apply just as much to placements in independent schools as to elsewhere. Last month, Peter Doran completed his review of complex needs provision, and we are now taking forward his recommendations in order to ensure that every pupil gets the right help at the right time and in the right place. A joint Education Scotland and Care Commission inspection report on the Camp Hill School Aberdeen was published in January 2012, and all the quality indicators were very good or excellent. Particular strengths of the school include happy, relaxed children and young people who feel safe, valued and respected, the dedication and enthusiasm of staff and the use of the natural environment particularly to help develop children and young people's skills. And as noted in the motion and by several speakers, the Camp Hill School also achieved the Eco Schools Green Flag status earlier this year. They and the Royal Blind School are the only independent all through, that is to say, 3 to 18 additional support needs schools to hold Green Flag Award status in Scotland. A further 14 all through ASN local authority schools have also attained Green Flag status. Camp Hill Scotland also, I think it should be said, deserves credit for its role in promoting the development and well-being of Camp Hill communities, including encouraging communities to work together, helping them to learn from one another and to collaborate for common benefit. This community and ecological aspect of the Camp Hill schools was pointed to by both Joan McAlpin and Maureen Watt. And Camp Hill Scotland engages with national policy and legislative changes, including on self-directed support, the same as you, learning disability policy and the Children and Young People's Bill. The Scottish Government is now working on a new strategy document for people with learning disabilities which maintains principles and directions of travel established by the same as you, and progress needs to be maintained in reducing barriers and discrimination so that the aspirations of people with learning disabilities to live meaningful, fulfilled, independent, included and healthy lives can be met. The national drive to move away from long-term residential care for people with learning disabilities towards support in the community has been incredibly successful, as the vast majority are now supported in their local communities, including in Camp Hill communities. Having choice and control is also critical to achieve independence for those with learning disabilities, and the ongoing work on the passage of the Social Care Self-Directed Support Scotland Bill and the wider self-directed support strategy will have a clear part to play in all of this. But can I just say, by way of conclusion, Presiding Officer, Camp Hill provides an outstanding education in its broadest and most inclusive sense, and with that in mind, I very much welcome this opportunity to recognise their achievements.
Many, many thanks. And that concludes today's business. I now close this meeting of Parliament.